Hey, so welcome to episode 14 of Andromeda, and we have some unexpected conflict in this episode. Just about everyone is involved in some kind of altercation now. And let's start by checking on the player who was the first to push over someone else's Lego castle. So Ermor's message from Saramatia. Saramatia is pissed. He's like, yeah, I ain't taking your half-baked propaganda, bud. And out of his battles, these two right here are just Saramatia checking out what he's got on those squares by sending in a commander on retreat. And there's just some lossless invasion into some province defense here down at the Mercs. And this battle here was Ermor intercepting that small group of Oreopadas that was moving in toward his territory. This little group right here. And we know how this is going to go, but we might as well watch it. These Oreopadas actually stand up really well against these Equites, even without this heavy bless. The high defense skill goes a long way. If these things have a heavier bless, this would be a much better matchup for Saramatia. Not this battle specifically, but the war in general. But you know, when you get heavier bless, you don't get as good as scales. And having better scales can be better in the long run in a lot of situations, but I mean, you also need to survive into the long run. And it looks like that battle happened amid a famine. People are not having a good time here. His site searching is paying off. He found a really good pearl site here in Valgard. And we're going to have an arena battle in a few months. That's going to be really cool. Hopefully all the players participate. Arena battles are really fun, so I'm looking forward to putting together this episode here. So Ermor is doing something pretty cool here. He's setting up a sort of defensive wall. If you look at what units are going to be where next turn, all three of these provinces right here are going to have at least a small army on them. This one being the smallest, but this one is looking at the smallest threat. So Ermor's moving in a lot of stuff, and on top of that, they've got this little group of Ictiids that they're moving up here, probably to dip into Underhome. So Ermor's doing a good job of not overextending, which could allow this army to move on through and kind of cause a serious amount of economic damage to him before he can intercept it. Though sometimes there could be benefits on moving through someone's territory, say to cut them off from a large portion of their income. But because of the scout and the scry, Ermor can see that Saramatia's territory is probably not very big. Like at best it stretches out into this direction. He's about to find out that it doesn't. So I'd be pretty frustrated if I was Saramatia right now. But you know, things aren't over till they're over. Like, there's still multiple entities that could potentially get involved in this war that could have a significant effect on how it turns out. And speak of the devil, Helheim is offering military assistance. This would be really great for Saramatia. Helheim has some gross stuff going on up there. Like, even though Helheim would struggle to field as many good units as Ermor, Helheim would be able to apply serious economic devastation if he started raiding Ermor with just little groups of Hellherdings. That would force Ermor to respond, and Saramatia would be able to stabilize their border situation. And Atlantis is actually saying, yeah, we'll go ahead and start raiding them, but you need to pay us. It's actually not that much. Like, I've spent more on a mercenary group. If you gave 250 gold to someone and they started raiding someone you're at war with, that would be a good deal. And really gave 8 death gems and a helmet to Saramatia, and he says, if you survive the onslaught, throw me some blood slaves, buddy. So yeah, it does look like people might be willing to help Saramatia out here. That'd be really welcome because he's getting a lot of pressure. Now, we know about all of these fights, and this is the one where he lost units. But let's see what a Russ raiding party looks like. Now, against some armies, this isn't necessarily a raiding party. Like, this could kill a lot of small armies depending on what the composition is. These things are pretty gross. Now they have the regeneration online. They're really obnoxious to kill. And keep in mind that when they switch over to their bear form, they're going to regenerate for more and have bigger HP pool in general. So pretty big obstacle for Saramatia here. And as we know, it looks like Russ is doing a full-blown invasion at this point. It'd be funny if he stepped on the Dragon Scale Mountains landmine. Wonder how his bears would do against that. They do have more HP, but I don't think he took shock resistance. Yep, he opted for swiftness over shock resistance. So we'll see if he steps on it. He lost his assassin retreating into enemy territory. That sucks right there. But I do think it was a little reckless to ping with that. It could have actually made a big difference in one of these battles. Assassinating some Centurion leading an army can be a huge deal for Ermor. He's making some unusual movements this turn. He's moving all of these barbarians, these mercenaries, into fields of gold, probably not expecting that Ermor's going to be moving back into it. And he's taking all of this and moving it back to Neifel. Maybe to intercept Russ. Maybe he's trying to scare Russ off so that he can focus on Ermor. And he's also moving a raiding party into Bogatin. So it looks like he might be trying to handle the pressure from both sides, which I do suppose is pretty important. Like, Russ is getting dangerously close. If he wanted to, he could be within 1 square of his capital next turn. And he's got another big pile of skeletons coming up. He's trying to build up as quickly as he can. Now here's the problem. He's got to keep up this bid on these mercenaries, and that's going to be rough. A really big gold sink right here. So yeah, I'm thinking at this point Sarmatia definitely needs help to get out of this war unscathed. And he has got some offers, so we will see how that goes. He's already giving some blood slaves to Aurelia. That's nice, but I don't think he can afford to bribe Atlantis into raiding Russ or Ermor this turn. So with Calum, it looks like Aurelia is fishing for a potential military alliance against Henom, and he can finally make a new prophet. So his prophet did in fact die, which is what I was suspecting. I guess I just forgot or didn't notice when it happened. And he's immediately prophetizing a Seraphina on the throne. But yeah, you know, I'm thinking that Calum is just chilling here. He's got Corpse Man constructs already going, making even more lightning rods. Looks like he's prepping to do a bunch of site searching. Even Fuyafusa is going to get a visitor here next month. That's nice. He's been lonely for a while. A little tip when site searching: retreat. This can save your mages sometimes when something unexpected happens. Though there are also situations where this can screw you up too. It's funny. Sometimes I'll have an expensive mage site searching and the province that he's in will get pinged by a scout or something. Even though he could have like just smoked that scout in an actual confrontation or just stood his ground while that scout did a retreat command. He'll retreat and end up in an enemy province, get cut up. It's bad. So you're taking a risk, but you know, I think personally it's the retreat command's better. I've saved more mages with this than I have lost to random scout pings. It's not that common. Though it's funny as shit if people are doing it on purpose. But yeah, at present, I don't have a whole lot to say about Calum. And I think as far as this game goes, that's very good for Calum. Because I think literally every single other player other than Calum is getting involved in some kind of altercation here. And I know Henom's lands have been at peace for the most part so far, but you'll see in a bit. Now, if you remember last turn, Helheim sent a message to Atlantis like, yeah, we're never going to allow you up onto the coastline. This was Atlantis' response. And an attack on one of his coastal provinces. And let's check that out. So he's brought a little raiding army led by a Basalt Queen, which is a fairly expensive investment for leading a little raiding party like this. But, you know, it can do H3 damage spells, so still pretty good. And yeah, these units are just going to tear through PD. But yeah, these are really good line holders compared to the deep ones. As you can see, they can stand up and just chew through heavy infantry, which these deep ones would be taking a decent amount of losses doing the same. So good change in unit composition for Atlantis. Now, is he using these units effectively? Well, I guess that's for you to decide. I guess we'll find out where he's going with this when we get to his turn, but I mean, he's definitely not going to keep it. All of this is all Atlantis has moving on to it this turn. I'm not sure why, because I feel like with the way Atlantis has been playing that he would put enough PD on this province that this would just die. It looks like he's expecting Atlantis to either move into Vertlin or Hyperbos? Whatever. Hyperbosy. And he's got little groups of Hellherdings moving into both these provinces that would smoke that party. So Atlantis' options where he doesn't lose his raiding party is if either he just stays here and he'll kill those units if he moves back into the water, or if he moves onto this fort, which I think would be pretty futile. But so is this entire operation in general. I mean, I guess it is denying some blood slaves from Helheim. It's unfortunately interrupting Zephyron's site searching of the area where, you know, he might be able to dig up a citadel. But yeah, this is also pretty unfortunate timing for Sarmatia, I think, because Helheim was just offering military aid to Sarmatia, and he didn't have that much when he was making that offer. He lost a lot of Hellherdings taking this throne right here. Like, this right here is just about all he's got for a standing army, and that's not a lot. Now it looks like he's gonna have to use these small forces to defend his territory from whatever the hell is coming up out of here. So horrible timing for Sarmatia. I don't think he's gonna be able to help with Sarmatia's war here. And he's got corpse men coming at the exact same time as Calum. It's pretty funny to me. And it looks like he's getting a priest mage over to get some infrastructure onto this sage province. It's going up here in a second. Now, Russ has received 2 messages from Atlantis. One of them is kind of interesting. I think this message was meant for Aurelia, because he's complaining about the landfolk and is talking about gathering for Russ, which I believe is him trying to tell Aurelia that he's fine with accepting a military alliance against Russ. So kind of a confusing message if it wasn't meant to go to Aurelia here. It's a good thing that Atlantis didn't use more explicit language, like we'll begin gathering for the invasion into Russ land or something like that. And it looks like Atlantis has rejected the offer for 350 gold for 15 earth gems and just says, 250 for 10 is good. He's found a couple of magic sites, a smoldering maze, gets some fire gems, and this boosts fire ritual ranges by 2 provinces, which, could become relevant, who knows. He does have some access to fire magic, though he would need a booster for a lot of this stuff, like fires from afar or breath of the desert, and it's like, why would he want to cast this anyway? So probably not going to come up, at least not for fire rituals. And he found a Howling Gorge air gems, really handy. It looks like he maybe forgot to move his site searcher after that. So we already know of his invasion into Saramadia's lands, and it looks like he's going to close off and just continue pressing this invasion. But it is possible that we'll see a counterattack from Saramadia. I'm thinking the Saramadia was more so trying to potentially intercept him here if he decided to move onto this province. But it's possible that Saramadia could be trying to, spook him off from advancing further by showing him a really large army. At least by Russ's standards, he's only got 15 units hanging around here. And he's building a temple here in Flower Meadow Forest. I believe he is wanting to recruit Jade Maidens. And these are pretty good sacred units, kind of similar to the Oreopadas that Saramadia has. Now, unfortunately, without a fort here, he's only going to be able to pick up 1 a turn, but still with his Bless, this is a nice addition to his armies. It's a shame that its HP is only at 10. If it had 1 more HP, it would be in a new regeneration bracket and would heal 2 HP a turn instead of 1. And this is also something to be mindful of here is the fact that he can get Jade Sorceresses from this province, as he doesn't have very good access to water magic otherwise. But this is where I definitely think he should be focusing, building a fort, building a temple, building a lab, because this is where lizard men are. And this is just such a solid mage. In most nations where I find a lizard man province, which is fairly common, I'll slap down a fort, a lab, a temple, and start building them up. Because they're cheap, their research is good, because they're sacred, their upkeep is relatively low, and they are useful on the battlefield. Just about any battlefield can make use of these. And in a lot of nations, they're a godsend for diversity, though not as much for rest, but still, they'd be really good in communions. And with the regeneration blessed, their communions will even be a little bit hardier. So I'd really like to see him make use of these. But yeah, pretty ruthless shit going on over here. But, that's just how it is. Russ is small. Russ needs to get bigger. He has no choice. If he stays this small, there's a very good chance of this becoming him in the near future. I also forgot to talk about his events. He's actually had a couple of good ones. It looks like now that he has Saramadia's province, he's getting that adventure event. But Troll Air event, really good. Just a big gem pinata with some gold on top of it. And he also yoinked a lab from some lonely wizard, which is kind of a bummer. But whatever, free lab in a completely useless spot. Not even any good recruitment here. It's just a shitty swamp. Now, here's a bit of an interesting event. Brillia is twitching out about Hinnom having provinces in his cap circle. His best is saying that if he can't have his cap circle, he's going to try and take it by force. So what Brillia is referring to is these 2 provinces up here, which, are kind of in Brillia's cap circle. But because water nations don't pull resources up from coastal territories, they're not as important to the water nation as, say, provinces like this. And a lot of times they're not going to be able to contend with land nations. And you might be able to get an idea of what I'm talking about here. This is what Hinnom is moving. This is Hinnom's answer to this message right here. He's moving all of this stuff up to intercept what Brillia might be pushing up into these provinces. Which, once again, really bad timing for Saramadia, because Hinnom was talking about potentially intervening in the war with Russ. Though, he still might be able to. He is moving an army down in this direction, as well as his 2 Earth Mages over to Cloudcap Spires. And I'm presuming he's going to be using those Earth Mages to buff this army right here, so he might actually be moving into Russ, which could help Saramadia out. We'll have to wait and see. He got a successful casting of Dark Knowledge this time, and he found an animal cemetery here in Pack Woods. Now this is actually pretty sweet, and it looks like he's recruiting a Death Mage right now to go and take advantage of this. At least I presume that's what he's doing with the Death Mage that he's recruiting here. And we'll wait to see if he ends up summoning some, and then we'll check him out. They're these little sleep vine doggos. They're little doggos, and they're covered in vines that make people go to sleep. So pretty cool sight, especially when he can activate it with just this little mage that he often wouldn't have a lot of use for. This is kind of cool. He's recruiting a bunch of these heavy archers with the crazy range great bows. These things are so cool. It's like they shoot javelins at range 50. It's disgusting. And he's building them up in both of these forts here. And now Atlantis. He has received a message from Saramati informing him of Ermor's really big bless. I also want to lie to Atlantis and just be like, oh, I don't quite remember what his bless is. I don't think it was that good. And that might try to make Atlantis feel a little bit better about raiding Ermor. Received a message from Calum saying that Calum doesn't like Rilia and is just expressing some general friendliness to Atlantis in some strange ways. If you remember, Atlantis gave 500 gold to Helheim as kind of an advance payment for potentially taking a province. And Helheim is saying, well, hey, Ermor's taking underwater provinces in your own ocean, which I actually don't know what Helheim's talking about here. Maybe he's referring to that little pond, but that one's separated up north of Helheim. But Helheim is saying that if Atlantis agrees to a non-aggression pact, that he'll send back that 500 gold that Atlantis sent him. Which, I mean, at this point, I would just take that, but, you know, this is Atlantis. And Atlantis is doing what Helheim was not expecting and moving on to his fort. Now, there's a reason Helheim wasn't expecting it. This is nuts. Like, this isn't enough to siege down the fort. It's just going to get pushed off by some Hellhirdings if this party doesn't keep moving and get killed off in the woods down here somewhere. Well, whatever. Maybe he's about to kick Helheim's ass. We'll see. And Hinam's talking about trading gems for a water-breathing ring, which would be pretty funny if Atlantis ever ends up fighting a Melkart with a water-breathing ring. Scooped up some water gems at a whale fall. Pretty nice. And he's now got a fort on a throne. He hasn't sat on it yet, though I don't think that he necessarily should at this point because of the negative gold value. It's really only if his dominion starts to get pushed, which can, you know, be pretty damaging as a scales water nation. But yeah, it doesn't look like he's really planning to like reinforce this siege with anything. He's not moving anything from his capital. I think he's just flinging this into it to die, just to harass Helheim, maybe. Or maybe he just thinks that because he doesn't see any units around here that Helheim doesn't have a response at the moment. He might not be used to fighting with elves. Yeah, this is a pricey and very useful unit here, so it's kind of sad to watch it being thrown away like this. At least he's not bringing his Basalt King along. And Rili's turn is fairly straightforward, which includes Saramati's message to him. There is no denying that I am at war with Russ and Ermor. Saramati must be orzing right now. But yeah, as far as messages go, all Rili's really got going on is he just, he booted out some hippies somewhere. But as for his actions, he is invading Hinnom's territory with all of this. This is big numbers. I don't know what ever happened. Didn't Helheim just like offer him this territory? I guess it's because he sees this as cap circle and he thinks it's important. And this is a very high income province right here. What he really should have done is when he had the agreement with Atlantis, he probably should have focused on taking these provinces before Hinnom got to them. And then he might have had a little more diplomatic ground in maintaining them, because if Hinnom was to take them, then he would be the aggressor. Though if I was in Hinnom's position, I just would. But yeah, this officially makes it so that Calum is the only nation that isn't involved in any form of altercation. Calum is now the peaceful land. So yeah, we could end up seeing a pretty big pile of slaves fight some giants. Would be pretty bloody, and it might be some time before Rilia gets around to tackling this throne. So this has been turn 15 of Andromeda. The volume knob's definitely getting turned up. This has been a pretty aggressive game so far, and I'll see you next episode with the developments.